So yeah, I'm finally talking about this episode. I have mentioned this being a terrible episode multiple times in other videos, but this is not just a terrible episode. It's not even just the worst of all SpongeBob episodes. This is the worst episode of any show I have ever seen. Sure, the episode that got me the most angry was Boys and Squirrels from Family Guy, but that was only because of one scene. This episode has like one scene that doesn't get me angry.
Hey!
This is like the third time I tried to make a video on Sandy's Naughty Nieces. The first time was actually the first video I ever recorded. I never released it because I just didn't feel like I did this garbage episode justice for how truly bad it is. Let's start with the beginning scene, which is like one of two actual jokes in the episode.
Laser Rich?
Uh-huh.
Nope. Not even close. No.
Oh.
Ugh.
This one falls pretty flat and also doesn't make sense. I get that modern SpongeBob is pretty much as dumb as Patrick, but still, this should be Patrick doing this joke. He is supposed to be the stupid character, so why are you not giving the stupid jokes to him? SpongeBob is so stupid nowadays, I swear to God, give it 5 more seasons and SpongeBob would just die. Because he will be too stupid to know how to consume food. But enough about that, because this is probably the least offensive thing about the episode.
I'll get it!
Surprise! Hiya, sis!
As I see these three enter, I get depressed. What is it with SpongeBob and introducing these family characters that will never ever be seen again in any future episodes? I mean, you have SpongeBob's cousins Blackjack and Stanley that appeared back in season 6 and were never mentioned again. Patrick's sister, Mr. Krabs' 3 nephews, oh wait a minute. They've already done this fucking DuckTales, Ducklings parody before in this show. Shouldn't really surprise me though, as this show only knows how to do one thing nowadays, and it is to rip off themes from earlier episodes and just making them worse. I will just refer to these three monsters by the color of their clothes because they don't deserve names. And we get this gag of SpongeBob saying he has experienced babysitting and cutting away to this. This joke is okay. It's not funny, but it isn't frustrating, irritating, or downright offensive as the rest of this episode. So, I'm fine with it. Oh, and this is pretty much the only decent joke we get in the entire episode, so glad we got that out of the way in the first 2 minutes of the episode. SpongeBob does his best and starts reading a story to the nieces, but after literally 2 seconds they just start making these stupid rhymes where they all say something that the next one rhymes, which is more irritating than funny. They pop SpongeBob's storybook and screams at him that they want to wrestle instead. These little demons break SpongeBob's hand twice arm wrestling, and Sandy tells SpongeBob to show them around town. He takes them to the Krusty Krab, which apparently isn't enough for these small devils, because they start walking around the place all smug and showing to Krabs that they are keeping an eye on him. And I don't get this scene at all. What is the point? Why are they watching him? Also, this is the first time in pretty much the whole show I wished we have season 6 to 8 Krabs back. If people were disrespecting him in his restaurant, he would just flat out kill them. Krabs would make these three into squirrel burgers, and I would be all for that, and I'm a vegetarian. Also, I might add that the maddest I've ever been at the cartoon character is when Brian killed the squirrel in Boys and Squirrels, and now I just wish Brian could come to this show instead. Then we of course need some undeserved bad things happening to good old Squidward. The nieces insult his looks as we get a gross close-up. Yeah. SpongeBob does a good effort at making them happy by making dolly patties that I actually quite like the design of. Guess the nieces don't agree because the yellow one starts squirting ketchup on SpongeBob, who does a Mr. Krabs impression. Then mustard on Squidward for a SpongeBob impression and Plankton for Krabs. This would be funny if we hadn't seen SpongeBob do like Mr. Krabs impressions in Mimic Madness and other earlier episodes. Like seriously, these writers can't even come up with gags that are original anymore. Then the nieces threaten SpongeBob with violence if he doesn't take them somewhere fun. And he takes them to Goo Lagoon, and they are actually not looking like smug assholes anymore. Might this episode actually take a good turn and SpongeBob can get along with them? Nope. They build a sandcastle of concrete on him, so he can barely move. Then they try dropping a wrecking ball on the poor Sponge. Oh yeah, they don't try to do that. They actually force a fucking wrecking ball on the guy's head multiple times. Is this funny? This is like Looney Tunes, or even a better example, Tom and Jerry, if Jerry just assaulted Tom when he was trying to befriend Jerry. They don't apologize or anything, and they just go to SpongeBob's house. So, what was the point of the Goo Lagoon scene? It didn't further the story at all, because SpongeBob didn't react to them beating him up. He just went along with it, even though it clearly hurt him. There's no build up here, and SpongeBob slowly getting mad or something is just not here. Patrick is in SpongeBob's house because plot, I guess. He wants to watch SpongeBob's TV and doesn't know how to turn it on. I have to admit, Patrick telling the TV to show him funny is pretty funny though.
Show me! Show me funny!
Then this unfunny sequence ensues where Patrick can't see the TV because the nieces are in the way and they just move back and forth with little to no dialogue. They do the, moaning thing that modern SpongeBob does, where the characters are just making noises instead of talking. Great. I'm thinking now that this part would work better as a short if you remove the nieces from the whole SpongeBob universe. Are we supposed to be rooting for the nieces here, or are we supposed to be rooting for Patrick? Because I honestly don't know. We get another wrestle match, and Patrick, being the absolute Chad that he is, defeats them all three at the same time. Now these three starts crying and runs to Sandy to tell them everyone was so mean to them. What? Is this the joke, or was it the other way, or that it was actually them being mean to anyone, or are the writers just stupid? Finally, these monsters leave and we get this ending scene that, I don't really care. We will never see this Rosy Cheeks character again, and I hope to God that I will never have to watch these poor excuses of characters ever again. Also, I might add that this episode, for all the terrible things I mentioned, also suffers the exact same problems as pretty much every season 12 episode. Weird faces, unnecessary sound effects and grunts, no jokes, dumbed down characters. Yeah, season 12 is garbage, and this is just a perfect example of it. Sandy's Naughty Nieces is actually the first episode I reviewed where I can't give it props for anything. This is like a 0 out of 10 episode. I doubt we will get any lower scores anytime soon, but I haven't gotten to any season 6 or 8 episodes yet. But those seasons are still better than season 12, so it's safe to say that this is my least favorite episode of the show, and it's probably the only one I will never rewatch, along with Feral Friends. Now for this end segment, I would like to look at the characters in the episode and discuss what they did good and what they did bad. Because I don't want to seem like a jerk that just hates on cartoons, I want to highlight the good parts with the bad parts, even though, well, there aren't much good here. I'm gonna start with the best character in this episode, and that is Patrick. He was the best character, but that doesn't really say a lot in Sandy's Naughty Nieces. He wasn't really that comedic, but he was the only one really fighting back against the child bullies. Which makes sense since he is kind of a child himself. I don't have anything bad to say about Patrick, although I can say I would have liked it more if they have written it like the reason he had a conflict with the nieces was because he saw how they treated his friend SpongeBob. But I guess that is too much to ask from a modern SpongeBob episode. Okay, so Mr. Krabs and Squidward are next. I'm gonna do these two together because they don't really do much. They were passive, as you might say, and what they do is pretty much the same thing. They're both victims of the niece's terrible behavior, and neither of them snaps at them or anything. I'm just neutral here. They didn't do anything wrong per se, but they didn't do anything funny or interesting either. Next is SpongeBob. I did not like him in this episode. He was just a punching bag for the nieces. If he had a moment where he stood up for himself in the end, I would have liked it a lot more. But as it is, I didn't care for SpongeBob characterization in Sandy's Naughty Nieces. However, he had a few decent moments, such as the babysitting joke in the beginning and the imitation at the Krusty Krab, I guess, although are unoriginal. And then we have Sandy. Originally, I didn't have any problems with her this episode, but the last scene, she says something that changed my mind entirely.
First rule of babysitting my nieces:
What's that?
don't babysit my nieces.
She knew the whole time that her nieces were terrible and that they would probably torture poor SpongeBob, and she did nothing except saying in the end that you should never babysit her nieces. She says this after he had babysit them. Sandy, why wouldn't you just tell him that in the beginning to at least prepare him? SpongeBob would probably still go and babysit them, he doesn't care. Is this all punishment for him fooling around in the opening scene or something? I don't get it. Okay, so that is all the characters in the episode. I don't think I forgot anyone. These are all the characters from the SpongeBob universe that were in the episode. Yeah,